Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
So we just ranked the head coaches in every Power 5 conference in our last 5 episodes. Be sure to check out our feed if you haven't watched those, or listen to them if you're listening to the audio podcast. Now we're going to put them all together, add in the group of 5. Let's rank the overall 20 best coaches in college football. And we're going to have the bro that was the highest on each of these coaches kind of give their take on why they're there. So I'll start at number 20 with Billy Napier of Florida. I was the highest on him. I mean, he quickly turned Louisiana into a group of 5 powerhouse, pulled in the Sun Belt's best recruiting classes, had 2 straight top 20 finishes on the field these past 2 seasons, which is incredible at Louisiana. Yeah. And seemed to be at or near the top of the list of every SEC job opening for the last couple of years. And I think there's a reason a lot of folks wanted him. He is, coached under Nick Saban. He sort of has that model. He's going to run a very organized program and one that is, most importantly, committed to recruiting, which Florida fans, of course, sorely missed when they had Dan Mullen.
That's right. Number 19, we have Hugh Freeze of Liberty. He's of course had some drama around him, but the fact of the matter is that he wins. He did it at Arkansas State, then at Ole Miss, now at Liberty. He turns out very good offenses. He's developed NFL talent. Now he has Malik Willis going in the draft from Liberty. He's won 6 of his 7 bowl games. He's definitely put himself in position now to get another big gig in the near future if he so chooses.
I'm hoping it's Lincoln, Nebraska. All right, moving on to number 18. We have Dave Aranda from Baylor, coming off a 12-2 year where he won the Big 12, won the Sugar Bowl, beat Ole Miss. You do that at Baylor, you got to be a lock to be a top 20 coach nationally. I mean, that's just an incredible feat. I know his first year wasn't very good at Baylor, but that's okay. Just getting the ball rolling there. So amazingly good job there. He brought in a good offensive coordinator. Jeff Grimes came in from BYU, so that really helped kind of get that offensive going, which is what they needed. Pair him with Aranda's D. Great start to his career there.
No doubt. Number 17, Mark Stoops of Kentucky. Slowly built them up over the first 5 or 6 years of his tenure there, and now they're making bowl games every year. They've finished top 20 twice in the last 4 years. They just pulled in a top 15 recruiting class. That's insane. So not only is he upping the winning, now he's upping the recruiting. So you got to think more 8, 9, possibly 10 win seasons are to come.
That's right. Number 16, we have Kirk Ferentz of Iowa. He's the longest tenured coach in college football. Very consistent, not flashy, but that's really rare in today's game to have someone, this consistent. And it's good for a place like Iowa. He always seems to maximize the talent. In the early 2000s, he had a run finishing number 8 for 3 straight seasons. But then for the next 10 years, they only had one breakout year. There were a lot of 7, 8 win seasons where they were good, but just not really moving the needle. But look more recently, since 2015, he's won the West Division twice, won at least 10 games 3 times, went to a Rose Bowl, 35-13 in the most recent 4-year bubble. It's quite a run he's had.
Yeah, and sorry, Iowa fans who are watching this, because this is probably going to upset you. We did not
next one.
Try to set it up this way, but number 15 is Matt Campbell of Iowa State. So close. Yeah. Campbell inherited a team that hadn't had a winning record in Big 12 play since the year 2000. He now has 5 straight seasons with a winning conference record. He won a Fiesta Bowl. This is by far the best stretch in Iowa State history, and he deserves a ton of credit. Iowa fans, you can brag that he has not beaten Iowa, but given the type of program that Iowa State was forever, seemingly, before he got there, I think I prefer Campbell as a coach to Ferentz, just slightly.
Yep, I'm with you.
Number 14, Luke Fickell of Cincinnati. He's had a heck of a run at Cincinnati. Pretty much swept the Coach of the Year awards this season. And it wasn't just one season. He's 44-7 the last 4 years. New Year's Six a couple years ago. Then the run culminated in the playoff berth this past year, which we all know was a first for a Group of 5 team. The recruiting has risen to the highest level in the American. Just watching him on the sideline, his toughness shows in his players. He could have about any open job that comes up, but he just continues to be building a great program.
That he does. It's been impressive. Just very interested to see which program he does eventually go to,
if any.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. At number 13, we have this is the highest rated Big 12 coach we got, right? Yeah, I believe so.
Yep.
Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. He's been there 17 years. Talk about a long career there. And the only year he hasn't had a winning record was his very first year. So that's 16 straight years of at least 7 wins, not just 6, 7. That's very impressive in Stillwater, really anywhere, but especially there. In 7 years, he's had at least 10 wins. So he's 11-5 in bowl games, just killing it right now. And I know recruiting is kind of the one thing that maybe holds him back a little bit. You wish you could take it to that quite next step in the recruiting, but what else do you want? He's won the Big 12. He's keeps winning tons of games. I don't know. His longevity's been kind of just that great.
Yeah, I mean, if he had the recruiting thing, then he'd be top 10. It's like he's
fair enough.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why he's 13th and not a top 10 guy. That's right.
All right, moving on to number 12, Kyle Whittingham of Utah. Now, we're about to get to the who's who of college football, but Whittingham, I think, kind of deserves to be a part of that. When they were in the Mountain West, there was a year he went 13-0. They finished number 2. That was in 2008. And then as they transitioned to the Pac-12 a few years later, people kind of wondered if the jump was going to be too much for them to be able to compete. The first few years they were finding their footing. But since 2015, they've won or shared the South Division 4 times. They were a conference championship game away from the playoff a couple years back. They got them to the Rose Bowl this year. Of course, barely lost a classic to Ohio State. But it's just amazing that he's gotten Utah to be the face of the Pac-12 the past 5 years or so, along, I guess, with Oregon. But pretty remarkable run in Salt Lake.
Yeah, I mean, the longevity there, I love it. He's done awesome. I like Utah when they're good. It's fun to watch. All right, number 11, we got Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss, another coach that I like. His teams I like watching. He's a trendsetter, man. You gotta like Lane. It's one of the reasons why I was so high on him. 10-win regular season this past year at Ole Miss. That's the first time they've ever done it. Great accomplishment. He's got him on the right track. He's done a good job recruiting. He's obviously hitting the transfer portal hard, which you got to be. And nowadays, if you're going to be successful, so that's a good sign. We know he can do high school recruiting, but now that on top of that is good. Did a great job at Ole Miss. I mean, obviously at Ole Miss, but at FAU before this time at Ole Miss. So his on-field coaching is great, and it kind of may alter my thinking of him just because I like the way he coaches. His offenses are fun to watch, but then just his aggressive nature, the way he goes forward on 4th downs, goes with the numbers, like, hey, this is the way to do it, man. The way especially up against Bama, because the way it didn't pan out, the time where he went 4 on 4th down, it didn't pan out. It's like, you know what, that's okay, man. Like, yeah, that's gonna happen. But you also have the upside where you can actually beat him when it comes together. So that's what you got to do in those situations. He's on the right track. I like him.
Yep. I think he has to be top 15. I'm a big fan as well. So number 10, James Franklin at Penn State. Had maybe the most amazing turnaround in college football history at Vanderbilt, and then, of course, is doing a great job at Penn State, or at least built them up to where they were, kind of a consistent top 10 type team. And the last couple of years haven't gone as well, but I think, everything he's done for the past decade plus, one bad year in 2020 and 1 year in 2021 where they had some bad luck in close games, that's not enough for me to drop him too far, especially with recruiting actually getting even better lately. So I have no doubts that James Franklin, Penn State will be fine. They're going to start winning 9 or 10 games again very soon, if maybe this year.
Yeah.
Number 9, we have Mario Cristobal now of Miami. And with most of these guys, of course, they're good at a lot of things, but Cristobal, his calling card, he is an outstanding recruiter. He was able, when he was at Oregon, he was able to dip into California, kind of turn that into a pipeline towards the end of his Oregon run, take some of those guys away from schools like USC, UCLA. He made the Ducks the class of the Pac-12. And one of the reasons you have to have him high on this list too when he's going to Miami is the fact that the university is so willing to invest in him and the staff and the program right now. The stars seem to really kind of be aligning there at this time. So if I was a Miami fan, I'd be awfully excited, as it seems like he could get the U back in the mix.
Yeah, this is definitely an exciting time for the U. It's been a little while, but this is it's looking pretty strong right now. We'll see, though. All right, at number 8, we have Jim Harbaugh, the much maligned Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Finally got the monkey off his back this year. He beat Ohio State. He won the Big Ten. Didn't do so hot in the first playoff game, but that's okay. Nobody really cared too much about that in Michigan. They're very happy with this year. He's 61-24 there, and 42-17 during conference play, which I think is an underrated mark for him. I think all of us pros we're just happy that he finally did break through. We've always been high on him, even through the struggles of last year, and they weren't quite putting it together. We knew he was a great coach, so to finally see him get it done when he's had so much, against him, and then some unlucky games, it was nice to see him pull through.
For sure. Number 7, Brian Kelly, the new coach at LSU. He's won big everywhere he's been: Grand Valley State, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, and then, of course, Notre Dame, which had been, of course, having their struggles. But he made a BCS national championship game there. He made it to the playoff twice. He averaged 11 wins per season the past 5 years. Never had the talent to build a Georgia, Alabama, or Ohio State type team, one of those top level seasons. And it seems like even when they did make the playoff or make the BCS national championship, their power rating was well below those very top teams. But maybe at LSU, he'll be able to get better talent there than he was able to get at Notre Dame.
Number 6, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M. So far at A&M, the wins, at least the sheer number of wins, haven't necessarily matched some of the expectations that have been there in College Station. But from a metrics perspective, he really has. He's exceeded or at least elevated the program, because they've had some difficult schedules and he's handled them pretty well. I mean, the other thing is they did win an Orange Bowl a couple years ago, and they just missed the playoff that one season. So, but I would agree it's time to start showing a little bit more results on the field. But the recruiting, that obviously has to count for something. He just pulled in the best overall class that we've ever seen. And then you got to factor in the success that he had at Florida State: 5 straight 10 or more win seasons, New Year's Six Bowls, won a national title. So he's definitely worthy of this position in our eyes. And then that leads to number 5, Ryan Day of Ohio State. We talked about on our podcast a few years ago, when Ryan Day took over, kind of how to rank him, since he didn't have the resume, but you just kind of knew, given his pedigree and the position that he was in, that he would do well. He's backed it up and honestly been better than probably what any of us could have thought. Recruiting is the same or even better than when Urban Meyer was there. 23-1 in Big Ten play. Finished in the top 5 his 3 years. Went to a national title. Just won the Rose Bowl. The accolades keep going on and on. Turns out NFL talent. The success there is only going to continue. Now it's just becoming more of a question of, when will he break through and maybe win a national title?
Yep, that's it. Exactly. All right, we'll move on to a coach that was pretty similar situation. We always had this similar kind of discussion with him. Was Lincoln Riley, number 4 here, take it over at USC. So we kind of just got to look to his OU days. He was obviously did a tremendous job there. He was hired as the offensive coordinator by Bob Stoops. Immediately just, boom, offense is elite. I mean, and those offenses were elite by like a wide margin for a few years there. Nobody could even touch them. They were so much better, right? So with the Baker Mayfields, Kyler Murrays, they were so good. Jalen Hurts, 55-10 there. So averaged, about 12-2 type year every year. And 3 of those losses came in the playoffs. So, It's not a big shame losing there. So, but having multiple Heisman winners, is having a great offense is always fun. Recruited extremely well, even better than they did under Stoops. Now I think he's just set up for success at USC. I think relative to the competition around him, I think he's, the head and shoulder pretty much best coach in that conference. I think he could set it up the Trojans for another dominant run, hopefully.
Hopefully, for
you,
my
Michael.
sake. Yes, exactly. All right, let's get to our top three. We had an identical top three, same order. Third, for the first time, Dabo Swinney. He's been, entrenched at second, but we dropped him to third. And I think it makes sense. I mean, if you just look at what Dabo has accomplished the last, 15 years, close to it, then it's obvious he should at least be in the top three, and you probably should put him number two. But we're not just looking backward. We're kind of looking right now and moving forward what we're expecting. And there's at least a kernel of doubt moving forward. I think even a Clemson fan can admit that to some extent, right? Like they lost both coordinators this offseason, especially, of course, Brent Venables being the one that really hurts. They just went 10-3 against a not very difficult schedule. Offense was bad, and Dabo has elected, at least so far as of this recording, to not add any impact transfers. Seems, from what his comments are, pretty staunchly against adding at least a lot of transfers. And so far, it's just been Hunter Johnson, which is unlikely to make much of a difference this year. So, and their recruiting class ranking was lower than it had been the previous two seasons. So those reasons are what kind of added together to put us below. Well, plus the guy who's number two won a national title.
Exactly.
So.
We parlay that with our number two, Kirby Smart. Maybe Dabo's dropped himself a little bit, but really Kirby has done a great job elevating himself to this number two spot here. Just won a national title. I mean, how much better can you get, right? You win it all, and he made another national title game and was obviously extraordinarily close to winning that one. Had to go into overtime. And he just immediately made Georgia a heck of a lot better, which was impressive. 66-15 there, 36-5 in the SEC his last 5 years. He's recruiting at an elite level, top 4 classes pretty much every single year. So it's just impressive how, what he's done, considering Georgia was always a good program, but for him to just immediately take him to the elite level and how great his defenses are, he learned from the best, and he's just replicating it. He really is.
Yep, and so that, of course, he learned from number one, Nick Saban. Not a lot of suspense here for number one. He's the GOAT. We know all the accolades, the national titles, the SEC titles, but I went back and looked. If you listen to our SEC podcast, I talked about how I looked back at his year-by-year results, and it's just silly at Alabama. Only once since 2008 has he had a year where they lost 3 games. It's also amazing how his coaching tree is so long now, and Alabama never misses a beat, despite a new coordinator or two, it seems like, every year. Not much to say other than, he's the best.
Okay, so let's get to the full list of 20 here. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments below who you thought was the biggest snub. Ryan, what about you? Who's your biggest snub?
Ooh, well, I was kind of thinking, for the biggest snubs wise, I was kind of looking more of before I got to my snub, I was thinking, just general thought here of it's so hard to rank these coaches. It is really just so hard, because when you take into consideration, how do you take situations, I should say, into consideration? Ryan Day was set up for success. Lincoln Riley was set up for success. How do you measure that against, the type of coach they really are? Because you could have, if all of these coaches on this list, maybe top 20 coaches, if you put them in Ryan Day's situation, what would they have done? How would that have panned out? So what if you put Clark Lee, a guy that's struggling at Vanderbilt? What if you put Clark Lee as the head coach of Ohio State? What would he do?
He'd probably do pretty well.
He's killing it right now.
Probably do pretty well.
Maybe he's winning a national title. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so hard to judge. So when we make these rankings, it's just it's so subjective, and there's so many times where we would be yeah, we could switch these coaches and there'd be no problem. We're not setting in stone, but you got to put them somewhere. And it's so hard to rank coaches. It's one of the hardest things to do.
I think making these lists makes me definitely more sympathetic when I'm seeing other people's lists, because I don't know, sometimes people just come out with a crazy list, but usually you can kind of make an argument for how whatever order someone has it in. Like you said, it's so subjective. But as far as for me, I'll name a snub. Well, I don't think there really was a snub. Like I
don't either.
I mean, you could argue for guys. Obviously, you could argue for Mac Brown. I had him 20th. Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
I could argue for Mike Leach. I'll throw Mike. I like Leachinator. He's had such a great career, and I still think he's going to do well at Mississippi State here.
Mm-hmm. Trey, so you didn't really have any snubs, or?
No, I was the same. I had Mac Brown. You could say Leach. I mean Sataki, but like I'm not going to put him in the top 20. It was just like
you could have Sam Pittman, Mel Tucker, but it's still early.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the listeners and viewers think of who's the most. Sure, there's going to be people off a couple spots or two, but is there anyone? I don't like when I sit back and look at this rationally, objectively. I don't see anything egregious in terms of an overall spot.
Oh, that sounds like a challenge to the YouTube viewers.
Let
us know.
Well, somebody will.
Somebody's going to strongly disagree. I'm sure there are. Well, we talked about it in the SEC episode. Maybe Billy Napier. Maybe people think that's too quick for him. He's only been a coach in the Sun Belt, so I could see someone saying that's ridiculous.
Maybe OU fans will be really high on Venables, thinking like, how can you? We're going to be good still. Venables, he finished well. He's been a great coach for such a long time. Mm-hmm. He's going to do great.
I could see. Yeah, he could easily. I would maybe even guess that he works his way into this top 20 just because he's set up so well there at Oklahoma. So, yeah.
Right.
Anyway, let us know your thoughts. Thanks again for checking out this episode of the College Football Bros. We hope you enjoyed all of our conference rankings episodes and this overall list. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and we will see you next time.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.